As you guys know, we go in major bursts of productivity, showing off what we've done, and then getting back to the lab. And we have been in the lab, and we're about to do something crazier than ever. This is genuinely not YouTube hype, going to be the biggest race of the Four Rotors career. And with that, we've got a blown clutch. It's probably oil or something like that that we've accidentally done in the past. But we've got to get this whole thing torn apart and racing by February 7th. It's a very big televised race, and so the stakes are pretty high because the competition is pretty insane. We're gonna refresh the motor while we're at it. Why not just maximize our compression? Because I've done weird things to that motor, so let's just start fresh.
We're also gonna have to go for highest horsepower with that too. So.
Yeah, we have the small upgrades to the fuel system because we've been at 1100 horsepower.
The turbo, we haven't even been able to max out the turbo.
And we're gonna swap from that turbo, go to the 94 millimeter turbo, and aim for a solid 1400 with the nastiest response because we have the straight gates from TurboSmart. We're gonna be putting sway bars, anti-roll bars, rough, rudimentary versions of those, but nonetheless, so that way we can turn, soften the springs so we can launch, because we're gonna be doing a lot of different motorsports all at once. Before we take anything off of the car, we're going to weigh it, and I guarantee it's gonna be way higher than you or I expect. That's because we have tons of Bondo, tons of metal, tons of everything inside of all the bodywork, because we haven't gotten to the carbon fiber yet. That's part of this year's adventure. But we need to know where we're at, so we know how we can cut weight. Be the biggest loser this year. Not just my driving, the actual weight of the vehicle. We're gonna be making some slight weight improvements for this adventure, but this isn't what we have in store for the rest of 23. So let's see what we get. With all that bodywork on there, we're at 3248.
I told you I saved a bunch of weight.
Yeah, you did.
Wasn't it 3,400?
It was higher. Yeah, it was higher before the bodywork.
It was 33.
Your turbo stuff weighed a lot.
It did, yeah.
3,200. Our front now offsets a little bit, but clearly we're front biased. That's very obvious on this car. So we're 45 rear, 55 front. We'll be cleaning that up even more as we go on, but just keep these numbers in mind when we go to do the carbon body and the full tube chassis from scratch. That'll be IndyCar, space frame, all the crazy stuff. We're gonna shed at least a couple 100 pounds out of this thing. I've realized something. While promoting all the benefits of AG1, everybody else around me has started to take notice, which has forced me to do this. I keep the good stuff locked away.
Whoa, I didn't know.
Yeah, so the problem is Joel has started stealing it. Erica, my girlfriend, has started taking it. It speaks for itself right there, right? If everybody wants it, you have to keep it safe because this is mine. AG1, first of all, it comes from New Zealand, which, as you can tell, a lot of the stuff in the shop does, so I'm emotionally attached to that. The benefits are where it's at. All of the different vitamins, minerals, adaptogens, antioxidants, supporting everything. Health in all sorts of ways, immunity, and on top of all the things that it does have, there's all the things that it doesn't have. Some of the things that still blow my mind is that on top of all the antioxidants and all the superfood complexes, down here it has all of your probiotics as well. With all of this in here, one thing you have to remember is to refrigerate this, the bigger one, after opening it. It's a great start to my day. It gets my brain in the right spot. I get also water. I need something like this to start my day because it gets me in a healthy mindset to finish the rest of the day out. So if you're ready to start your year off right, Athletic Greens is going to be giving you a free 1-year supply of vitamin D3 and K2, as well as 5 free travel packets with your first order. Go to athleticgreens.com/RobDahm to get started on your order.
This is pretty cool because we designed the intake manifold to come off by itself. We're gonna see if it comes out the way it came back in.
It really is impressive to me that all of this stuff just works together, and yeah, it has its bugs and hiccups. Our biggest concern is making sure that the car can handle and turns. It's weird that we have a finger in every single layer of this car, and yet all of this is working virtually flawlessly. Going back, you're like starting to get anxiety of like, oh my God, this car has all of these things going on at once.
Nope. I forgot that the engine harness that ties to this goes on with the injector harness, and then it plugs into the engine. And the cool thing about this now is the CDI system, it's off, and she could just come right out, and that's, yeah, I forgot how badass all that was.
Yeah, I worked my ass off to make all the wiring. The engine stuff is like almost final. Obsessed on that.
That was way better than I thought, and we set it up like that, but clean.
It almost made it out alive.
This is the Bondo we can never get to.
So we're about to pull the motor out right now, see what it's got inside of it, which we know at this point, but there's always new secrets and things to learn. Vacuum, even with the pressure regulator, must have sucked in part of this, which means we'll just have to let it cure longer before we fire it up. Ooh. Definitely making sure not to touch any of the mating surfaces, but drop all the bolts.
Nothing out of the usual, no?
Well, it's hard to tell from this point on. What you're looking for is the thickness of the discs. Well, we'll have to compare it to a disc that's good, but there's still a little bit of meat on there. At least there's no oil on it. Looks like maybe there's a little bit. I see that inner edge is a little brown. She's definitely got hot. And while we were prepping the surfaces and everything, I walked by and was just getting all the bolts ready, and I noticed the blood splatter. It's a liquid on the surface of this. The clutch didn't fail, we just lubricated the clutch, unfortunately. The smoking gun is this right here. It's got to be from the middle, because
There's no way to get oil in there.
yeah, so this is not a traditional E-shaft, so board, and then there's a thread put in there, and we did everything to try and do that thread, but it was still in the car at the time. Yeah, we're gonna have to take that back out, and
We'll figure something creative out.
yeah. I feel bad for Extreme Clutch, because like, okay, oh, we say, hey, you know, look at that, look at that.
Yeah.
The clutch is failing, which is true. We also broke a rear axle all at once, but it's slipping because of oil. That's not the clutch's fault. The oil is a lubricant, and maybe Valvoline's too good at their job. All the oil in the pad, the friction coefficient of that is just gone. X-Clutch is a phenomenal company, and we've been very happy with their clutches. This is the second time this one's died to oil. So we tried doing our best to prevent that, because we knew that this is the problem. This is really why the whole car had to come down.
It's spattering all that way, and it's all off by that side.
Whoa.
Isn't that crazy? It's leaking considerably less than last time.
Yeah, we made it. We'll weigh this one compared to X-Clutch's ultra lightweight one, and I think we might put the super lightweight flywheel back on. This is new territory for me. If you guys remember the previous videos, we would start taking it apart and it would just start bleeding all over the table. We definitely sealed it well. Let's try the next one just to see if we can get something. Still not leaking.
Really? The fuck?
Look.
If it was a regular engine, it would.
What the
There's
What?
no way. Try that one over there.
Oh, there you go. No, you just gotta... What is going on right now?
It's just so ridiculous. Man, we even put thread sealant on the threads of this to prevent any sort of possible oil going around it. And still, it's, you know, our theory was that originally it was coming around this side, which it is pretty wet, but then it was coming out of the middle. It might not be the center. Look at how easy this comes off. I think it might be the taper wasn't holding. Oh, that's not taper. There's tons of oil coming out of that part too. I think that's our current culprit.
Oil right there. So it's seeking through the teeth now.
Mm-hmm. So we're gonna go ahead and take the whole front cover off, just because we're gonna have to take the whole rear off. Might as well get the short block ready to go.
Not so bad.
Got that nice like, gunpowderish smell. So yeah, there's the race for the inside of that bearing. So then we've got our basically traditional stack. Thrust bearings are looking great. So good news is teeth all look good. Oh, we took a hit of something. Look at, that's not worn through. Something like a piece of metal. You know what that probably is? Braided stainless. The chunk of it hit the bearing. Valvoline allowed the engine to continue at full tilt even after I took foreign material into my bearing, you can see, look at it, it created a little path of wearing. This is not steel. This is very soft tin. That would be gone if it was in any lesser oil. It made metal to metal contact from the surface to the bearing, pressed it in there. You can see a little bit of a trail of wear after that, but the bearing is perfectly fine. Insane. That is absolutely insane. So we'll be looking further into that. But you can see it took a chunk out of there, so I might be pushing a new bearing in here.
Still didn't show any copper.
No copper, no nothing. It's just a pattern. That is 100%, 100 billion% of the reason why taking this motor down now saved us from catastrophic failure. Is it going to trash the motor today? No. Is it going to trash it this week? No. It will eventually help degrade the motor. The motor is less than perfect. So that saves us big time from any sort of catastrophic failure as we go to push this motor on the dyno to its absolute limit. We need no exceptions, and thank God we tore it down now. I feel the motor expanding just the slightest bit because everything keeps getting tough again.
Oh, slowly starting to leak.
Oh, yep. Finally.
There's a hole?
Yep. Yeah, so I sealed the shit out of it.
That's good.
I'm proud of myself because, as you say, I'm proud of myself because of my past sins. So we're gonna go ahead and swap this dirty one out, so that way we can get a visual on any side seals, corner seals, springs, anything that comes out of there. The outer coolant seals look really healthy. Got the blue Hylamar still there. Just nice to see like what it looks like before the storm. Okay, so nothing fell. This is rotor 4. Everything's looking...
Yeah, nothing out of the ordinary yet.
We have no broken corner seals.
Oh, that inside seal's like brand new.
Yeah, that's the sealing face. That looks good. You feel that there's no real discernible step where it looks like it. You can see a little bit there.
It looks about the same as last time.
Yeah,
right?
this side looks a little flat. I'm gonna try and keep all of the side seals in their spots. The hell is that one putting back? No way. I guess you can do that, man.
It all looks good in there though. There's nothing.
Yeah.
All the surfaces look good. The spark plugs don't look.
Apex seals look a little. Everything's looking fine, but nothing. Looking at the wear pattern on here, whether it's iron being deposited on the tungsten or tungsten being worn down, you can see that something we're gonna have to replace is the oil control rings have been worn back as they chew into the tungsten.
Wow.
They're not supposed to be that wide. I'm sure there's a tolerance and clearance for that, but you can see that silver ring on there, and that's just metal. We originally had ran this motor at full vacuum, and I put the vacuum regulator in there, but I think at full vacuum, it can pull and suck those oil control rings down too much. That's a theory, but they're definitely wearing harder. This isn't like a Renesis or a 12A. The seal is actually sticking because of the Hylamar here, so I'm not trying to pull it much because I want to potentially reuse these, but we will see. I've got my custom slide hammer attachment. Okay. Those of you that are new to the channel, these are the Kiwi or New Zealanders' way of making some serious power. I know it's not, those guys in Puerto Rico right now throwing shit at their screen that you guys always do at me. It's not just them, Australian, it's all over, but I just want to give credit where it came from for me. These are 16mm dowel bolts, dowel studs really, and they thread into the front and go all the way to the back, and this whole engine has been machined for these. And this is definitely, without a doubt, no bullshit, one of the strongest things that makes this motor so much stronger than the average motor, even with my original tuning, because I can tell I detonated the motor at one point, I think while racing Ken, and it popped the motor out this way, and you could actually see just a slight fraction of a deformation of the metal here. It had pushed incredibly hard, and that this dowel saved the motor from popping. Big proponent of machining and doweling the motors. Almost sounds like the laugh from Gorillas. You feel good, Ink?
Maybe?
There. That's it.
Okay.
That's it. It sounds like it.
Oh, I have heard the song.
I like your firm hard strokes.
I went tri-step on that one. I made this a while ago and we couldn't remember why it was so long, and it wasn't until this moment. You're screwed into threading inside of this lobe, and then we slide hammer that out and it'll pull this lobe specifically. There's no way. I just showed Isaiah how strong a man can be. He was hitting it repeatedly. He handed it off, and just like King Arthur, I just pulled that sword out of that stone. It was just instant.
Yeah, it was phenomenal. I was like,
we separated rotor 1, so we're going to go ahead and take what we're given. Oh, we cracked a corner seal.
That's an anti-lag. You told you.
We're going kind of out of order because the motor wanted us to, but this is rotor 1. Okay, let's see if I can do this one hit. Activate all 3 heads of the tricep. Wasn't meant to be. We're making basically a bearing puller for rotor 1's whole assembly. We're going to switch back to rotor 3. You over torque it to make yourself think that, oh man, that's better because it's not going to slip. Well, there's a thing as too much torque, and this is a perfect example of that right here. So this is rotor 3 to 4. Yeah, a little bit of everything going on in here. There. Rotor 3 is technically the E shaft because if you notice, this is the only taper back here. This doesn't come off. Rotor 3 goes all the way to the rear of the motor. Rotor 4 attaches to it, so technically, rotor 4 transmits torque from here and here to the back. But 4 is attached to 3, 2 is attached to 3, 1 is attached to 2, and clearly they're not letting go. Everything's still looking good on our special billet plates, no step wear. Back to rotor 1, and we're gonna go ahead and take the housing off to clear up our situation a little bit more. Based on the tools that are on the table, you can tell that what went off camera. I'm going to tell you exactly what I did out of sheer honesty. You're going to think, holy crap. Yep, exactly. That's not what I did. I used this as a brace straight across the face of this, flat like that. And then Isaiah, with God's grace of eyes, found the exact piece of aluminum that would wedge right behind there. So we got almost exact fitment tight, and then just a little boop with the nut on top of this, it forced itself.
Yeah,
it came off really easily. It was trying to find like constraining everything so that way when you bop it.
This is also kind of warm too, so I'm sure that helps a bit.
So
but yeah, now
we're finally
rotor 2 could show its ugly face. You know?
So we can take this off of here.
I wouldn't be able to sleep at night if
I know. So there we go. Okay, so this is the lowest performing rotor. I was expecting maybe some more carnage. I don't see any carnage. I think
is there an oil control ring on that side?
That's a good question. Yeah, look at they're hanging off right there.
They did it again.
Okay, so this is the face, and there is nothing, no damage on there. Tell us your secrets. That looks flat.
Yeah, that does look flat. Yeah.
That is the center bearing of this motor. There's 1, maybe 2 in the world like it. I think this is the only running motor like this where there's still a center roller bearing. I don't make it sound like it's my thing or I sound special. It literally is just what it is. I can't think of a more appropriate use than a bucket labeled this. What's sad is we could almost assemble the motor on this bucket. We just broke the tool that slide hammers, and when Isaiah was teasing me for being longer, well, we broke all the tools that came with it. But this is why it's longer, is that you actually have to thread into here, get all of it, the slide hammer to start here, and bop it out this way. Now what we're gonna do now is, sad, the most beautiful part. Good luck when Isaiah does that.
It's slimy how it normally is too.
He uses Valvoline too.
Somebody DM'd me the other day, they're like, dude, why does your hair always look so good? I was like, it's always some random oil around the shop that just happens to be in my hair.
Think that there's a 1 in front of that too? There's not. Okay, this is a weird moment for me because honestly, just like the rotary vet, which is the only car in this shop with the same seals as this engine, I think running it longer, harder, like getting the engine hot and bedding everything in, would have helped increase compression because we're not hiding anything. We flattened some side seal springs, but the one that was cracked, there was no low compression on that motor, at least lower than I'm used to. The one that I thought was gonna be a problem had the flattened seals. Okay, that makes sense. But I think that this motor actually just needed to be bedded in and ran harder because at the end of the day, pick any of the apex seals in here, you don't see anything shiny on there yet. Normally when you get the apex seals, they bed in and you get this nice shiny line, and even if you wear them a little too much, you get like kind of razor edge to that. Not the case on this motor. It doesn't even look like they're a thing. And now, I will tell you, before I assembled this motor, I did take it on the mill and I sanded the inside of this from our previous, the original setup where we had a lot of wrong things, but housings look great. They just don't look like worn in. And I think because of my ignition problem, I was using 80 amps, which is not necessary. I now will drop that back thanks to my buddy Kevin Vitas. I know you're gonna watch this. You say you don't, but I know you're gonna watch this. He called it. I said, no, we're gonna go full all time. So I think that with that, we can actually run this motor, get it up to temp fully, and gain even more compression, just like the rotary vet. And you see that the rotary vet now would make even more power because it's got even better compression. What a weird twist of events. I wasn't expecting doom and gloom, but I keep, every time I'm just waiting for this to be worn through. Now the rebuild begins, and you know what that means. 14, 15, maybe 16, maybe 0 horsepower, but it means I'm gonna give it every bit it's got, and that starts right now. I've done a little bit off camera to speed this process up because it is a very thorough and lengthy process, but I have gone through the motor and identified a lot of things. So I'm gonna start making it more public exactly what I'm doing because it's working more and more consistently, and so it might help anybody else. One of the things that you definitely do when tearing apart a motor, even one that's working, is making sure that the springs, at the very least, that they all are the same to each other. And so we have 4 little bad guys that are definitely not behaving as well. They're slightly flattened. This is full transparency, but the springs will definitely show that you had an event where it pushed the spring beyond its range. And sure enough, the reason I knew that was going to happen is I saw kind of a marking in the chrome. These apex seals are very hard. It karate chopped, it smashed into the chrome and left a slight imprint. Now that's okay, that's not a big deal, but it shows you that something had occurred at some moment. Apex seals are fine, they're very clearly not bedded in. I think all of my oil control rings, unfortunately, are gonna have to be replaced. I'm gonna put the vacuum sensor on my oil pan to make sure I don't over vacuum and pull those harder to the tungsten. If we weren't going for peak horsepower right now, I would reuse 90% of the springs. In fact, they'll all get used in the other motors. In this case, I'm going to replace almost all of the springs, if not all of them. The peace of mind when you're going for uncharted territory is very important to me. So this is my commitment to full send, right? Princess is over here, and I've turned the microphone towards me, so he can't say anything bad. And what we're doing right now is finishing up the manifold.
Actually, good thing you came over. I didn't want to talk about this, but I didn't have Joe here to talk to. One thing that I just found, I had to go through a whole process of doing it. When you are doing header stuff, make sure to use stainless steel fittings or stainless steel plugs, because I just had to drill out 3 plugs because they're brittle. I couldn't Allen head them out, and they just got stuck in there. Great for sealing. I mean, if I was never going to take it apart again. What I'm doing now is I'm attaching this EGT, because this is the 1/4 inch compression style versus the 1/8 inch that we have on the other car, because this is the Haltech ones, the badass ones, and like that. And be like, oh yeah, 69 degrees, you're running good.
Once we have all 4 of the EGTs done, you can see we have the provisions for O2 sensors. All of that's going to be used to calibrate the motor, and then we'll pull the O2 sensors back out. The EGTs will tell us relatively what's going on, and we're going to go ahead and try and get this thing double coated.
We did a vibe check on it. It was very low key. I was just going over it to see if there's any like cracking or something like that, and she's been doing good, and the C5 one has been doing good. So let's waste our money and coat it.
That's right. We are about to try and make more horsepower than I honestly think any other 4-rotor has ever made. We've been making a lot of power out of it, but those 2-rotor guys out there that make 1,000, that would equate to this making 2,000. And I mean, I'm a man of my word. My goal is to make as much power as possible. To do that, we are analyzing and reviewing things that would not matter on a typical motor, and I'm showing you all of this. Will this matter on your motor if you have a 2-rotor? Possibly, but something as this engine gets much longer, things get more and more significant, as insignificant as they are. This is rotor 1. I spent all of last day working on this, and you can see the little marks from my little bore scope, or what do I call this, cylinder gauge. You can see the little lines this way. Notice this ring about 1/2 inch off of this side of the bearing. Nothing's wrong, the bearing's fine, but it's a little worn. And so what I did was I measured. What that allowed me to do is say, that's the size of this bearing. Let's compare that to the size of this lobe. I found that this distance, diameter, is just shy of 3 thousandths smaller than this. Now this is where it gets really interesting. You see on Racing Beat's website, they tell you, hey, if you're going up to about 86,000 RPM, 3 to 3.5 thousandths is your bearing clearance. And honestly, that ends up being about average. That ends up being a typical clearance for a motor if you just put it together and buy random bearings. That's exactly what this is, and that's not what we're doing. We're up at 10,000 RPM almost every shift. That ring right there, that's on the opposite side of this gear. This gear physically holds the rotor in place, and this is the side that can wobble. This bearing clearance is so tight, even with maintaining good high oil pressure, it's still enough to cause problems at high RPM. So you would expect to see some sort of consistent wear equivalent to that on this side. When the motor is at full compression and say there's a detonation event, that side of the lobe is what the rotor would hit as it's spinning out of control. In fact, that's not where you see the wear. It's on this side. I started looking for trends without trying to look for trends because there's confirmation bias. So I was purposely not looking at any of those details, and I was just measuring everything as we were going. And sure enough, a trend occurred. This is the ring gear side, this side. Look at that, same exact thing. I measured the bearing, if you're wondering. Funny enough, this side actually clearanced itself to almost 4 thousandths. It's 3.75 thousandths of an inch. And that is actually what Racing Beat recommends when you're going to go over 8,600 RPM. They recommend 4,000 plus or minus a quarter thousandth or something like that. So this engine was actually starting to clearance itself for that. And thanks to Valvoline, that would have been metal on metal contact, and this bearing should have been nuked by me going way too hard. Nothing there. And then you see it on this side. Now, what's interesting is whenever you see a bearing like this, this is where the rotor is, and there's always going to be, on every rotary engine, something right next to it is where the gear is. The gear is always on this spot right here. When you see the rotor wearing, it's wearing away from this gear. The rotor basically, I'm exaggerating it, but the rotor can rock like this at super high RPMs. And what is very important to us right now, as you can tell, kind of a strategy, is we are going to clearance these bearings evenly to prevent that from wearing and catching and taking out the motor. We will skip rotor 3 for a second and go to rotor 4. As you can see, you can't feel that, but you can see it. Rotor 4 doing the same thing on the opposite side of the gear, and it's right there on the opposite side. I'm going to assume, looking at all of these wear marks from both this and this, that it has to do with wobbling, it has to do with bearing clearances. The one that really seals the deal for all of this is, let's look at rotor 3. I don't see it. It's subtle, maybe, but that's really, look at that, it's just the oil there, and I've measured it multiple times. You don't see that wear, if at all. Rotor 3 is the only rotor attached to this shaft itself. And you can even see, this is that side that it would be wearing on, and you don't see that iconic wear pattern here and here. I measured this lobe in relation to all the other lobes on this motor. Mind you, all the other ones are removable. These are almost a 1/2 thousandth bigger than this lobe. Measured multiple times, and that could have been how it was bought, that could have been how it was made, that could have been over time of wear, I don't know. But the fact is that that one lobe is 1/2 thousandth smaller, meaning that the bearing clearance is 1/2 thousandth more, meaning that it was in the 4 thousandths give or take range, and that's why that one doesn't have as much wear. If anything, that was a perfect A/B test because both were going on in the motor at the same time. The 3.5 thousandth, give or take, and the 4 thousandth, give or take. And I think the results speak for themselves. So what is important is that whenever you clearance bearings, obviously you're trying to find the center of the bearing, which is something that almost I'm not even capable of doing, because what is the center of a bearing on a motor? We can go into detail of that, but it's not just this piece. Where the apex seals, where's the gear, what's the center of the gear? You've got multiple things, so we won't cover that yet. But what we will cover is making sure that it is even all the way through, because you need as much surface area on the journal bearing, not flatness, but you want 2 cylinders to have the same exact distance all the way across. If you're looking at a super microscopic view of it, you don't want what's currently happening or forming is something like this, where it's very tight here and loose here, and that's because the rotor is self-clearancing. So you want to have it as consistent as possible. This is a major finding for us because one of two things could have occurred. One, we wouldn't have noticed it, engine would have continued working fine because now it's kind of clearance, and life would have gone on perfect. Or I would have continued pushing the motor harder, that would have clearanced itself until it didn't, until it finally made contact, and we would have taken out the motor and never been able to see the hints of what were going on. This motor, just like a 6-rotor, 5-rotor, or even potentially a 3-rotor, is susceptible to bending and harmonics and frequencies that are far beyond my knowledge or the scope of this channel or this video. That is a real thing. Like, you can measure the strain on this. It is extremely measurable. And in fact, any 2-rotor guy that does a lot of drag racing, they're straining it so far that they're breaking theirs in half. This shows us so much information, and I'm trying to learn as much of it as possible because this is unlocking horsepower. Thanks to Athletic Greens for sponsoring today's video.